The Foods for Wellness scan is an automated biosurvey in the Select and Elite software that's quick and easy to run. And it gives you a lot of great information that can be used to help you and your clients make better dietary choices. In this video, we'll give you an overview of the scan and show you what's included in the reports, as well as some tips on how to interpret the report data. So to get started, you would just come into the My Clients tab and select the client you want to scan. For this example, I'll do a client search and select this test client. Then we can select New Session. From here, we'll pull up this ZYTO biosurveys all new, and here's this Foods for Wellness scan. As we hover over this biosurvey, you'll see a description pop up. And this basically touches on the concept of bio-individuality, which is the concept that a diet that's optimal for one person might not be optimal for another. So that's really what we're addressing here, and we're doing this by gathering the galvanic skin response readings of virtual items that have been associated to different foods and looking for the most biologically coherent foods. Along with those coherent or preferable foods, this scan will also show the less coherent foods that the person will likely want to avoid. And the nice thing about this biosurvey is that it scans more than 450 foods, so you really get a wide variety of foods to choose from, so you can basically get a shopping list for the client to integrate into their diet. Okay, another thing to keep in mind before we begin is that this scan is not an allergy test. So we're not diagnosing food allergies here or anything like that. We're just finding out what the foods do from more of an applied kinesiology or a muscle testing standpoint. In a sense, they're just seeing if they responded to a food virtual item in a strengthened or weakened state energetically. Okay, let's go ahead and click on this scan to start it. And the nice thing about this scan is that you can focus on specific diets. So if your client is on a certain diet, you might want to come over here and say, okay, I know that they're vegetarian, so I'm going to eliminate any type of food that a vegetarian wouldn't eat. Or say that the client has an allergy to nuts. We can select that option, and it will remove all the items from that category from the scan. You can see all the other diet options here that you can select to filter the results, but for this scan, we're going to keep all the foods in there. So we're not going to select anything. Instead, we'll just click Next, and it will automatically start scanning the entire list of foods. Your client would, of course, need to have their hand on the hand cradle, and the scan will run as long as there's a stable connection to the hand cradle on all 6 contact points. Now, a biosurvey usually has what we call breakpoints, where the scan stops and you make certain selections before moving on to the next part. The diet selection at the first of this biosurvey is a breakpoint, and then this is the next breakpoint. And you can see that it shows you the responses to water contaminants, pesticides, endocrine disruptors, and so on. So we not only have those common food virtual items that we're scanning, but we also have these virtual items that may be contained within certain foods that can be a stressor for the body. So this breakpoint gives you an opportunity to select any of those categories that you want to explore further. But here, you can see that the categories with red numbers are those that are out of range. These are the ones you'll want to consider selecting. But there may also be one with a green number that you know is an issue for this person that you'd like to include. So that's why it gives you the option to add those too. And for anything you select here, it will scan all the items within that category. You can select the categories that you want to move forward with. But for this example, we're just going to leave this blank. Then, after this portion of the scan, it will generate the main food report. So now, this report is pulled up, and basically how this report differs from the previous food scan in the Select and Elite is that this focuses on the positive foods, or those that can be considered as balancers to the body. The report puts things in a more positive or proactive light where you can look at the foods that the person can add to their diet. The report is also categorized by food group, so all these items are ones that you can consider adding to the person's diet. Again, we have the most coherent foods for that category at the top, and then down to the lowest number value food item. And this is really nice because you can pick and choose foods from each category to get more diverse recommendations to the client. Now, down further in the report, You'll then see the top negative responses. So you could look at that and say, these foods at the top in the categories are the ones that I want you to focus on. And here are a few that we want you to stay away from or reduce for the next few weeks. You can also pull up additional reports on this menu at the top left of the screen. We have the Food Stressors Report, which shows you the responses to the associated food stressors like pesticides and GMO foods. Then we have the Foods and Stressors by category, where you can see top positive responses as well as negative responses. We also have one that shows only the top positive foods by category, so the ones to consider adding. Then we have one that only shows the negatives, or ones that you may want to reduce or eliminate from their diet. As an example, here on this report, one of our practitioners ran a scan on a client and found that the responses came up very negative for gluten foods. So he told her to eliminate those from her diet, and within days, she found that the problems that were coming up, like soreness in the shoulder and some inflammation symptoms, went away. So a good real-life example of how this scan and the report were able to assist the practitioner and client. Again, like the main foods report, the categorization in this foods with negative DRs by category is super helpful, and it has great information to help direct you where you want to go with food choices. Then we have this next report, which is similar to the main report, but also shows the associated food virtual item responses. Moving on down, we have the responses to all the foods, from highest positive to lowest negative categorized. Next, there's the filtered foods report. Now, the filtered foods that we filtered out at the beginning of the scan are still scanned, but they're just not included in the other reports. So this is where you can see those responses if you're curious. The last few reports here, we're almost done. We have all the foods with positive responses, and then a report with all the negatives. And finally, a report with the top 30 food responses overall, top 30 negative food responses, and then the associated food stressor responses. So as you can see, there are a variety of reports here to help guide you and the client with their food decisions. All right, just to recap, this food scan is not a scan for allergies. It's not looking for a histamine response. There are other tests that you can run for that. But the ZYTO system is looking for that galvanic skin response from the hand cradle. And then we're seeing how the body may respond to each food virtual item. So it's either going to give it a strong positive, biologically preferred response, or it's going to give a negative response or something that weakens the system. Then we also have those food stressor virtual items that are scanned, which can give you a better idea of what a person may be getting exposed to with the foods they eat. Really, this is an opportunity to ask the client where they get their food from. Is it organic? Is it GMO? Those kinds of things. Because the source of the food is just as important as the type of food we eat. So, that's the overview of the Foods for Wellness scan. The Select and Elite software also includes a variety of basic and advanced scans, which we go over in other videos. So make sure to check those videos out too. You can also learn more about the additional features of the Select and Elite as well as other products at ZYTO.com.